We're actually overeating because we're deficient in nutrients. I mean, the brain knows when it's fed, right? And if you eat a highly processed food diet, which we can talk about in the podcast, but what happens is it tricks the brain. Even though you're full and you've taken in the right number of calories, you haven't taken in the right nutrients.
Taking supplements for deficiencies is something that you've been teaching for over 50 years. And now in 2025, once again, you've been proven right. For example, the Best Trace Minerals is a great example. My first thought is Best Trace Minerals for the reason of like what's all coming out in the news now lately and some mainstream media and a lot of social media. Tell us a little bit about high vitality liquid and the absorption rate, and then talk a little bit about Best Trace Minerals too.
Well, I wanted to overcome obstacles because I'm a realist. And when you tell somebody they need 100 nutrients in supplement form every day, it basically scares the crap out of them. And so I figured, how am I going to get people to do that? I just ended up putting it all in one bottle. Yeah. And that was a biochemical feat that took quite a long time to accomplish, at least effectively.
Yeah.
And the biggest reason for that is our diet is made up of foods that have been so degraded over the last years, after the last decades, for a whole variety of reasons, over-processing, etc. And combine that with the high levels of stress that most people live under today, economically, and so forth. It's a recipe for the chronic disease epidemic that we face. And virtually every chronic degenerative disease can be traced back to nutrient deficiencies and to excess stress. So I wanted to create a formula that was easy to take, that was convenient, and that was reasonably economical, and one that you didn't have to go out and line your shelf with 15 different bottles of pills.
Supplements, in my opinion, come down to us getting back to the basics, right? I mean, most of us are supplementing for the sake of supplementing. We're not supplementing for deficiency. That's the difference. And you know, like we believe this in plant physiology, right? If you had a palm tree at your house and the leaf started rotting in a palm tree, and you actually called a true arborist or a botanist out to your house, they wouldn't touch the leaf, right? They would core test the soil, and they would say, you know what, Shawn, there's no nitrogen in the soil, and they would add nitrogen to the soil, and the leaf would heal. So human beings are no different, right? When you deprive the soil, you deprive the body of certain raw materials, simple things, which I'll list for you. You get the expression of that deficiency.
What about Best Trace Minerals? Is that also kind of like where that came from, that same school of thought?
Yes. The micro trace elements, many of which most people have never heard of, are the largest group of nutrients because there's over 50 of them that have been shown to be biologically active within the body. And those are deficient simply because they're no longer in the soils on which our food is grown. And so taking a supplement that provides organic colloidal trace minerals, I feel, is an excellent addition to the full spectrum concept.
We're very high in omega-6 fatty acids, the ones that are very pro-inflammatory, and most of us are deficient in the omega-3 fatty acids, the ones that feed our brain and reduce inflammation.
So we're very high in omega-6s with the diet that everyone follows. And deficiency in omega-3s is a big problem. Talk a little bit about the omega-3s in high vitality liquid and high vitality capsules.
Well, first of all, there are several fatty acids. The three primary ones are 3, 6, and 9.
Yeah.
And the 6 is what we call pro-inflammatory.
Yeah.
So high levels of omega-6 increase inflammation in the body, something we don't want.
Yeah.
Because we already have enough going on contributing to inflammation, excessive cortisol, etc. Omega-3s, on the other hand, are exactly the opposite. They are natural anti-inflammatory agents. But the standard industrialized diet is extremely high in omega-6s and very low in 3s. So when I put together High Vitality, you more or less have to have all of them, because it's really hard to totally separate them. But what we've done is we've put the omega-3s at much higher percentage than the others. And that helps to naturally offset the inflammatory nature of omega-6, which we find in the diet.
Human beings need 91 essential minerals. And a lot of us are very mineral deficient. And I don't mean like the big minerals and electrolytes that we hear about, like potassium, magnesium, sodium. I mean all the trace minerals: boron, manganese, molybdenum, selenium, silica. The boring ones that you don't hear a lot about.
And most people are deficient in trace minerals. And he said 91 minerals. Products like Best Trace Minerals have more than that. Tell me a little bit about that. And I know that goes back to MPK, right?
Yes.
And processing
it's poor farming techniques that cause this problem. Because when you plant on the same plot of land for decades,
over and over,
you eventually deplete the available resources in the soil that the plant needs.
Yeah.
And so, yes, NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash,
Potash.
The bane, the beginning of the destruction of the human diet.
Yeah.
Because the U.S. Department of Agriculture figured out that they could increase yield per acre, shorten the growing time by massively putting in NPK. And that worked so well from that point of view that nobody ever bothered to think about or consider replacing the micro trace elements. And so they are, generally speaking, extremely deficient. And because of farming techniques and because of overprocessing of food, the trace minerals have now become one of the most efficient groups of nutrients that we have.
The minerals, being mineral deficient leads to all kinds of consequences. If you look at nursing homes all over the country, they are full of elderly men and women with osteopenia or osteoporosis, brittle bone disease, or the precursor to brittle bone disease, that have been on calcium supplements for 20 years. Calcium's not the answer. Our bones are actually not made of calcium. They're made of calcium, which combines with something called phosphorus to form something called hydroxyapatite. It makes a hard, strong bone. But in order for that process to happen, the mineralization of those bones to happen, you need a few things. One, you need a load, which is why exercise is so good for you. But the other thing you need is 12 essential minerals. If you're deficient in those minerals, all the calcium in the world won't help you.
It's so fascinating that minerals are the answer, not calcium, for people that have the brittle bone disease. Or weaker bones. I want to discuss that, but first I want to know what a load is.
Well, when you front load a nutrient, say such as calcium.
Or exercise too.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, exercise can be figured in there. And all of these things, when they're excessive, the body has to eventually rebalance them.
Yeah.
And in the case of when we're talking about brittle bones and osteoporosis, it's not that calcium is unimportant.
Because it is.
It's very important.
Just like magnesium.
Yes, because the bones are made up primarily of calcium and calcified
Minerals, yeah.
However, there are several trace elements, manganese, copper, zinc, strontium, that are necessary to transport serum or blood calcium back to the bone.
Got it.
If you don't have adequate presence of those trace minerals, you've got calcium circulating in the blood, but it's not getting back to the bone.
Yeah.
And so it's not just a matter of taking a calcium supplement. You need to take one that also has the concomitant factors of trace minerals at the same time, in order that the calcium goes where it's needed and not where it's not needed.
Yeah.
There are a lot of other essential amino acid supplements out there. Most of us, we try to get to the amino acids by getting to a protein equivalent. right? So they'll say 1 pound of, or 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight, which is a great, guideline. But all protein becomes the same thing. It all breaks down and becomes amino acids. If you're deficient in any single one of the 8 essential amino acids, the rest of those amino acids convert to sugar or to fat. So most of us are not protein deficient, we're amino acid deficient. And it's very easy to get the essential amino acids. The reason why they're called essential is because they're necessary for life, right? We have 2 essential fatty acids. You have 8 essential amino acids necessary for life. So there are essential fats and there are essential amino acids, which build proteins. There is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. So if you just marinate on that for a second.
This is very cool because I know there's amino acid complex in high vitality liquid. Tell me more about amino acid complexes and specifically the one in high vitality liquid, how important it is.
Amino acids are the building blocks of your life.
Yeah.
They're the single most important food, essentially, that we can get. And they primarily come from proteins.
Proteins.
And when proteins are broken down in the body, they're broken down to individual amino acids. You often hear about people talking about the essential amino acid, the 8 essential amino acids. And that's true. Those 8 essential amino acids, and the reason why they're called essential is because the human body cannot manufacture them chemically. Therefore, they must be ingested from food. That doesn't mean that the hundreds of other amino acids that are going on in your biochemistry are unimportant.
Yeah.
What it means is that their body can make those as long as the 8 essential ones are present. And so when we develop the amino acid complex for high vitality, we emphasize the 8 essential amino acids because those are the ones that the body is dependent on from external sources.
Perfectly put. And so this sounds like something, these are things that you've been teaching for over 40 years, and especially for weight loss. And it's even in your book. Explain in detail for the person with weight loss goals or the person who thinks that they get all the nutrients from food. Explain to them in a nutshell why it's impossible. It's impossible to get all the nutrients your body needs from food on a daily basis.
When we did our research for my book on weight management, the Weight Management Revolution, which is available still on Amazon, on Kindle, and I believe it's available on one of our websites.
Yeah.
Anyway, when we were doing the research for that book, we identified the top 10 reasons for weight loss failure.
Yeah.
One of them is nutrient deficiency. Because when your body senses starvation, and that can be from consuming too little food, too little calories,
too little nutrients,
also too few nutrients.
Yeah.
And because our food, especially the junk food that most of us thrive on, is so nutrient deficient, the body sees that as starvation. And so it constantly revs up the appetite for you to eat more and more and more, trying to get not calories, but trying to get the nutrients that it needs to maintain life. And because they're not present, and because how it drives cravings and appetite, at our centers, when we put somebody in our weight management program, it is an absolute requirement, not an option, a requirement that they take a full spectrum supplement every day, at least while they're in the program, because not doing so simply makes weight loss more difficult. It creates and contributes to plateaus on weight loss, the fear of most dieters. It increases the appetite, it contributes to increasing food cravings, and it's so easily solved that there's no reason why not.
Well, once again, that's proof. If you live long enough, you will be proven right. And, Dr. Whiting has been teaching this for over 50 years in wellness centers, in fitness centers, in gyms, all types of places where this was all readily available for over 50 years. And now, finally, mainstream media proving you right.
It's coming out.
Carbohydrates are not essential for life. So you should be the most judicious when you make your choices about what carbohydrates to eat. The brain's like, hey, I still need the complex of B vitamins. I still need folate. I still need methylcobalamin. I need B12. I need zinc. I need magnesium. So it forces you, makes you hungry again, and forces you to overeat. So if you put two people on identical caloric diets, one is a whole food diet, meaning whole natural foods, and one is a highly processed diet, you'll see the highly processed diet group will overeat by about 500 calories a day because they're trying to get to the nutrients. And so, my message for the masses is we are not as sick or as diseased or as pathological as we've been led to believe. We are nutrient deficient. You started every day hydrating and mineralizing the body, a really good omega-3 with some omega-6 fatty acid, EPA, DHEA fatty acid, amino acid supplement, and then supplementing with 5,000 IUs of vitamin D3.